So the streets are whispering that Claressa Shields just handed the internet the most spectacular cell phone of the entire year. And honey, she did it with her own 2 thumbs, in public, in the replies, over and over and over again. And the craziest part of all? She has absolutely no idea it is happening. The woman who crowned herself the greatest of all time is getting dragged, seasoned, and served back her own words by regular people with cartoon avatars, one comment at a time, and instead of putting the phone down, Claressa Shields keeps sliding back into the mentions asking for another plate. And baby, by the time we get done today, you're going to see the exact comment that lit this whole thing on fire. The tattoo timeline that is everybody asking the one question Papoose will not say out loud, and the purse math that falls completely apart the second you punch it into a calculator. Because here is the reality that her side of the internet refuses to type out loud. Claressa Shields is not losing to haters. Claressa Shields is losing to screenshots. And screenshots do not get tired. Screenshots do not get emotional. Screenshots do not forget. So sit with me, because the moment we pull this one thread, the entire sweater comes apart. Now, let me set the scene real quick for the people just walking in, because some of y'all are entering this movie at the intermission. Claressa Shields, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed champion, the self-appointed GWOAT, and lately she has been on an absolute rampage, and I do not mean between the ropes. I mean in the comment section. Every time you refresh the app, there she is. Claressa Shields, deep in somebody's replies, arguing about who said what, arguing about her money, arguing about her resume, arguing about Remy Ma, arguing about things that do not even have a name yet. Pick a topic, any topic, and somewhere on that app she is 4 replies deep defending it like her entire legacy hinges on beating an account with 11 followers and a cartoon profile picture. And before the fan club starts warming up their fingers, let me say this plainly. Yes, she is a champion. Nobody is coming to repossess the gold medals. Nobody is erasing the belts. Claressa Shields can fight, and that is not the conversation we are having today. The conversation is why a woman who claims she sits at the same table as Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Beyoncé moves in a way that none of those people have ever moved in their entire careers. Because Beyoncé is not in the comments debating strangers at 2 in the morning. Michael Jordan was never in the comments. LeBron James is not in the comments. You know who is in the comments? Claressa Shields. Every single day, like it is a scheduled shift. Like she clocked in, picked up a name tag, and asked where her register was. And here is the part that almost bends reality. This is the same Claressa Shields who sat in interview after interview, looked directly into the camera, and told the whole world she is built different. She said she is not like the other celebrities. She said the noise does not reach her. She said the talk does not touch her. Unbothered. Untouchable. Above it all. And then, and I need you to track this sequence with me, she turned around in the very next breath and got emotional on camera about how people online are trying to bully her. Wait. Hold on. Time out. Claressa Shields, the woman who says she can beat up everybody on the planet, is being bullied by keyboards? The self-crowned GWOAT who talks like she could walk into any gym in America and clear the floor is telling us that strangers with Wi-Fi connections have her in emotional distress? Baby, make that make sense. You cannot sell us Superman in the first act and then hand us a crying scene in the second act because the comment section got a little spicy. Pick a character, because right now Claressa Shields is auditioning for 2 completely different movies at the exact same time. And this is exactly why people have started calling her the most bothered, unbothered celebrity breathing. She wears the crown of I do not care, and then she cares so loudly, so publicly, so repeatedly, that caring has basically become her second full-time job. Now look, I want to be fair before we go any deeper, and baby, we are going way deeper. I do not hate Claressa Shields. I do not have a single reason to. The woman is a real fighter with a real story, and if this was purely about boxing, this would be a coronation video. But this is not about the ring. This is about everything that happens when Claressa Shields has a phone in her hand and a Wi-Fi signal. And honey, that is a whole different fight. And it is the one fight she keeps losing by unanimous decision. Because here is the pattern, and once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. She posts something. Somebody in the comments points out something obvious, not hateful, obvious. And instead of scrolling past it the way every actual A-lister on this earth does, Claressa Shields stops, squints at the screen, and decides that today is the day she goes to war with a random citizen. Then she loses. Then she comes back. Then she loses again. I have been watching this cycle for months, and I have yet to see Claressa Shields walk out of a comment section with a win. Not one. It is like watching somebody sprint full speed into the same glass door every single day and then blame the door for hating. And the reason it keeps happening is simple. When you declare yourself the standard, you invite the audit. You cannot stand on the rooftop announcing you are the greatest of all time, an A-list celebrity, bigger than the sport, richer than the rumors, and then act shocked when the public starts checking the paperwork. That is not hating. That is the receipt department doing its job. And speaking of receipts, we have to talk about the money, because the money is where this whole thing went from embarrassing to mathematically impossible. Word on the street is that Claressa Shields has been telling anybody who will listen that she made millions off her last fight. Millions, plural. Claressa Shields said it in the comments with her whole chest. Somebody told her the numbers did not match, and she fired back asking if they were on dope. Millions, she said. Okay, cool. Let us do what apparently nobody in her circle is willing to do and open the calculator app. The disclosed purse, the number sitting on the actual commission paperwork, was $500,000. 500,000. Now, disclosed purses are not the whole story in boxing. Everybody knows that. There are bonuses and back-end points and side deals. Fine. But millions means 2 million minimum, because that is literally how plural works. So for that claim to be true, there had to be $1.5 million floating around somewhere that nobody has ever seen, documented, or even hinted at. No sponsor announcements. No bonus reports. No nothing. Just vibes and plural nouns. And it gets worse, because Claressa Shields has also been waving around an $8 million contract with $3 million up front. Now stay with me, because this is where the math starts sweating. If $3 million came up front, that leaves $5 million spread across the rest of the deal. If she were truly pulling $2 million per fight, that entire contract would be drained in about 2.5 fights. So either the contract number is inflated, or the per fight number is inflated, or, and this is my personal theory, both numbers are out here doing choreography. The math is not matting. The calculator filed a complaint. The receipts are asking to speak to a manager. Now here comes the part that should have ended this debate forever. Claressa Shields got offered, reportedly, around $2 million to fight Chris Cyborg. A legend in her own right. $2 million, on paper. Real number, real fight, real money. And when somebody in the comments pointed out, very calmly, very reasonably, that taking that fight would have made her more than what she ended up with, do you know what the response was? No, I would not have. That is it. That was the whole rebuttal. No, I would not have. Explain how. No, I would not have. Walk us through the math. No, I would not have. Girl, that is not an argument. That is a ringtone. You cannot debate a documented offer with a shrug and a period. When somebody shows you $2 million in ink and you answer with nah, you have not defended your bag. You have defended your ego. And those are two very different accounts. And the beautiful, tragic irony of all of it, the person in the comments was not even being cruel. They said, hey, no surprise that fighters make more than the disclosed number, but you still would have made more total money taking the Cyborg offer. That is not hate. That is arithmetic. And the self-crowned GWOAT treated arithmetic like a personal attack, because at this point, anything that does not arrive with applause gets treated like a punch. But hold that thought, because the money comments are only the appetizer. The main course is a video, a bouquet of flowers, and a song that was never about her. And when we get back to it, you're going to understand why half the internet thinks Papoose is playing chess while she is still looking for the checkerboard. But first, we have to talk about the man himself, the tattoo, and the look on his face that said everything his mouth would not. Now let us get into the love story, if we can even call it that, because this chapter has more red flags than a beach during hurricane season. And before anybody says I am reaching, let me be clear. This is commentary on things that were posted publicly, discussed publicly, and screenshotted into eternity. The internet did not invent this saga. The internet just refused to let it die. So here's the scene. Papoose, veteran rapper, famously the devoted husband of Remy Ma for years, now publicly booed up with Claressa Shields. While, and this is the part that matters, he is still legally married. Not divorced, not finalized. Married, with paperwork, while the new relationship is getting soft-launched and hard-launched at the same time. And the self-proclaimed A-list celebrity is out here posting flowers. Now on the surface, flowers are sweet. Everybody loves flowers. Except the internet remembers, because the internet always remembers, that not long before this, she was practically on her knees in the public square hinting, nudging, and outright campaigning for this man to buy her flowers. And when the flowers finally arrived, what did Claressa Shields do? She posted them. Which, fine. Normal couple behavior. Except she posted them while playing a song. And here is where the whole thing tips over. The song she chose was a record Papoose made for Remy Ma. For his wife. About his wife. Years ago. A record that line for line is about a completely different woman. Let me say that again slowly, because it deserves the slow walk. She received flowers, got excited, hit record, and chose, out of every song ever made in the history of recorded music, the love ballad her man wrote for the wife he is not divorced yet. And not one line of that song is about her. Not a bar. Not a metaphor. Not a single syllable. And when a commenter simply pointed this out, not with hate, just with honest confusion, basically asking why Claressa Shields was posting a video soundtracked by a song he made for his actual wife, she jumped into the replies arguing that it is his song and his wife's song. Baby, read that sentence back to yourself in the mirror. It is his song and his wife's song. Congratulations. You have successfully explained why everybody is confused. Is you the wife? Because the paperwork says otherwise. The paperwork has a whole different name on it, and that name is Remy Ma. And do not think Remy Ma is some background character in this movie. Remy Ma is the whole reason this triangle has gravity. Because by every public account, the queen did not leave. She got left. And the details that have floated around for over a year now paint a picture that, if even half of it holds, should embarrass everybody involved. We are talking about the same timeline where she was allegedly cozying up to Remy for styling advice, reportedly asking the wife herself for pointers on how to dress. Chew on that. Asking the wife how to dress while allegedly ending up with the husband. If that is how it went down, that is not a love story. That is a heist film. And Remy Ma is the one who got robbed in her own house. Now, is some of this rumor and alley talk? Sure. And I will always flag the difference between a court document and a group chat. But where there is this much smoke for this long, somebody is at least grilling. And speaking of things that are hard to explain away, let us talk about the tattoo, because the tattoo timeline is where this story stops being messy and starts being suspicious. So Claressa Shields reportedly went and got her man's name inked on her arm early. Like way early, in the public phase of this relationship. Bold move. Permanent move. The kind of move you make when you think you are locked in for life. And for months it sat there on her arm, solo, unmatched, because Papoose did not have her name anywhere on his body. Nothing. Not a letter. And people noticed. Interviewers noticed. There is a clip floating around where somebody asks him point blank, so when are you getting her name tatted? And I need you to understand. The look he gave that interviewer could freeze liquor. If looks could kill, that man would have needed a coffin, a pastor, and a choir. He looked at that interviewer like the man had just insulted his entire bloodline. And then, and this is the part that makes you go home, days before one of her big fight weeks, suddenly, magically, Papoose shows up with fresh ink of her name. Now think about how real couples do this. When two people are genuinely drunk in love and decide to get name tattoos, they usually do it together. Same shop, same day, same adrenaline. What they do not usually do is have one person get inked a year early and the other person get inked right before the biggest cameras of the year are pointed at them, right after the timeline got flamed on the internet for looking one-sided. You do not need a detective badge to see why people are side-eyeing that sequence. And I am stamping opinion on this. In my opinion, it looked less like romance and more like reputation management. Like somebody said, the internet is cooking us, go fix it, and the fix came out of a tattoo gun. And here is the deeper question that keeps me up at night. Why is a grown man, a veteran of this culture, letting his love life get stage managed like a public relations crisis? And why does a woman who claims every room she walks into belongs to her keep accepting the discount version of everything? The flowers she had to beg the algorithm for. The tattoo that arrived like a late invoice. The relationship status that still legally belongs to somebody else. This is the GWOAT? This is the A-lister? Because from the outside, it does not look like she is being adored. It looks like she is being managed. And honestly, it looks like everybody can see it except her. You want to know what A-list actually looks like? I will show you. But first, let us rewind to a claim she made that aged like milk in the sun, because she did not just call herself A-list. She dared the internet to fact-check her resume. And baby, the internet brought a forklift. The claim was essentially this. I am an A-list celebrity, for real. Act accordingly. Okay, so the internet did what the internet does. It started pulling tape. And one of the first questions that came up was, where was the coronation? Where was the big mainstream press run when she was actually at her competitive peak? Because The Breakfast Club, the biggest morning platform in the culture, the show every actual A-lister passes through, where was that interview back in the day? Where was the sit-down with Charlemagne and DJ Envy when the belts were fresh? I am asking sincerely. Pull the clip. I will wait. Because for a self-declared A-lister, the mainstream footprint from her actual championship prime is shockingly thin. And a huge slice of the general public genuinely could not pick her out of a lineup until the last couple of years, when the fame finally arrived, mostly through controversy, not coronation. And that right there is the crack in the crown. Real A-listers get famous for the work and then survive the controversy. She is getting famous for the controversy and keeps pointing back at the work. Those are two different careers, and deep down, I think she knows it, which is exactly why the comment section has become her second office. But hold on, because we still have not talked about the funeral, the security team, and the single most jaw-dropping power move in this entire saga. And when you hear it, you are going to understand why even some of her own defenders went quiet. Now let us talk about the interview moment that should be studied in journalism schools, because it tells you exactly how this whole machine operates. She sat down for a conversation, and the topic of a controversial incident came up, and her entire defense was built on one sentence. It did not happen the way they say it happened. Okay, fine. That is a start. So the interviewer does what interviewers do. How did it happen? And the answer that came back was essentially, it just did not happen the way they say. And when they pressed again, she circled the same drain. It was like watching a GPS reroute back into the same lake over and over. And here is why that matters more than any single comment war. When a public figure cannot complete the sentence "here is what actually happened," one of two things is true. Either the truth is worse than the rumor, or there is no version of the truth that survives daylight. Neither option is good. And the fan club watched that same clip and heard nothing wrong, because the fan club does not audit. The fan club applauds. That is the difference between a supporter and a shield wall. And she has built herself the finest shield wall money cannot buy. And let us be precise about the word hater, because it is doing more work in this story than her jab ever did. In this ecosystem, hater no longer means a person who hates. It means a person who quotes. That is it. If you repeat her own words back to her, you are a hater. If you read the disclosed purse number out loud, you are a hater. If you ask why the song about the wife is soundtracking the girlfriend's flowers, you are a hater. The word has been stretched so wide it now covers arithmetic, calendars, and her own upload history. And words stretched that wide snap back, because the public eventually figures out the trick. And once the public sees the trick, every future defense gets read as misdirection. That is exactly where she is right now, and she got there one reply at a time. Now here is the question her circle should be terrified of, and I have not heard a single person ask it. Who benefits from all of this? Because it is not her legacy. Every day Claressa Shields spends arguing with strangers. The actual business of being the greatest sits untouched. There are little girls in Flint who need the version of her that showed up to the Olympics twice and willed herself onto that podium. There is a whole women's boxing economy that needs its biggest name making fights, not replies. And instead, the daily output is name-calling, purse-inflation, and relationship defense on behalf of a man who has not yet finalized his own paperwork. Meanwhile, Papoose stays relatively quiet. Think about that. She fights the internet's battles daily, and the person the battles are mostly about keeps a low profile and lets her absorb every punch. That is not partnership math. That is exposure math. And she is the one standing in front of the lens. Let me also address the role model question head-on, because the fan club loves to hide behind it. She says she is a role model. Beautiful. Necessary. This culture needs them. But role models are not crowned by announcement. They are confirmed by pattern. And the pattern here, publicly, includes mocking strangers, escalating feuds, turning an altercation into entertainment, and treating accountability like an opponent to duck. You do not get to claim the title on Monday and violate the job description Tuesday through Sunday. The little girls watching do not separate the champion from the comment section, because she does not separate them. She is the one who merged the two. She brought the ring into the replies, and now she is upset that the replies hit back. And can we talk about the stamina for a second? Because honestly, it is almost impressive. The average celebrity melts down in the comments once, maybe twice a year, and it becomes a whole news cycle. Claressa Shields treats it like cardio. Morning session, evening session, weekend bonus rounds. And every session follows the same choreography. Provocation, overreaction, screenshot, ratio, and then the post claiming she is unbothered. Baby, the unbothered do not file daily reports from the battlefield. The unbothered are at brunch. Beyoncé has not typed a paragraph since the internet was dial-up, and that is precisely why the mystique compounds like interest. Silence is a currency, and she is spending it like she is trying to go broke. Now, in the interest of the fairness this channel is known for, let me steelman the other side, because it deserves a real hearing and not a strawman. Is there a double standard in how outspoken black women athletes get covered? Yes, absolutely. Male fighters talk reckless every single week, hop in comments, flex inflated money, and get called confident for it. Floyd built a whole empire on exactly that energy and got paid for it. So when she says the rules feel different for her, there is a legitimate threat in that, and anybody pretending otherwise is not being honest. But here is where the steelman hits the wall. The double standard explains the scrutiny. It does not explain the strategy. Because the correct response to unfair scrutiny is discipline, not volume. Serena got scrutinized harder than anybody in sports history, and she answered with silence and trophies. Aya Wilson gets it too, and answers with MVPs and a shoe deal. The scrutiny is unfair. The answer is still the same. And the answer was never, not once, argue with 11 follower accounts until 2 in the morning. And that brings us back to the man in the middle, because no honest autopsy of this era skips Papoose. A veteran, a lyricist, a man who built a public identity on loyalty and patience, now sitting as the silent center of the loudest love triangle in the culture. Here is what I keep circling back to. If this relationship is the real thing, the forever thing, then the single most loving act available is boring and free. Finalize the past. Close the old chapter on paper before writing the new one in ink. Because every day that divorce remains unfinished, every flower post, every tattoo reveal, every comment war lands differently. It all sits on top of somebody else's unfinished marriage. And Remy Ma, say what you want about the history, has mostly chosen the one move nobody else in this story seems capable of. Quiet. Strategic, devastating quiet. And in a war of narratives, quiet is undefeated. The internet fills silence with sympathy and fills noise with screenshots. Right now, one side of this triangle is being filled with sympathy and the other with screenshots, and everybody involved knows which is which. There is also a boxing conversation buried under all this gossip, and it deserves oxygen before we get to the funeral of the comment wars. Women's boxing is at a genuine crossroads. The talent pool is deeper than it has ever been. The platforms are bigger. The money is climbing. And the sport needs its biggest personality to be an asset, not a cautionary tale. When the headline about the GWOAT is never the fight, never the training, never the next opponent, but always the replies, always the feud, always the math that does not math, it taxes the whole sport. Promoters watch this. Sponsors watch this. The young champions coming up behind her are watching this and taking notes on what not to do. And honestly, that might end up being the strangest legacy of all. The pioneer who kicked the door open, teaching the next generation how to walk through it by showing them every wrong turn first. So here it is, the story that separated the fans from the fan club. During this whole feud era, word came out that security was being arranged, not for an arena, not for a red carpet, but around a family funeral. A funeral, the most sacred, most somber gathering a family can have. And the allegation making the rounds was that the security posture was aimed at one person showing up to pay respects to her own grandmother. Read that twice, because I had to. We are talking about a grieving woman allegedly being kept at a distance from her own grandmother's homegoing because of beef. I do not care what block you are from, what gym you train at, or how many belts are in your closet. There are lines you do not cross, and grandma's funeral is painted in neon at the top of the list. And before the defenders assemble, yes, this is based on reports and public chatter, not a court transcript. But the fact that the story was believable enough to travel is the indictment. Nobody would believe that rumor about Beyoncé. Nobody would believe it about Serena. The rumor moved like a verified account because the behavior pattern made it plausible. And this is the woman who then turns around and says she is being bullied. You cannot flex a security perimeter at a funeral and then cry about mean words in your mentions. The math of sympathy does not work that way. Now let us get to the actual comment wars, the blow by blow, because this is where a rough week turned into a full autopsy of her own judgment. Round 1. Somebody drops a comment poking at the money, saying other women in the game out-earned her. Trolling. Clearly trolling. Fishing for a reaction. A-list protocol says you scroll. GWOAT protocol, apparently, says you engage. Claressa Shields jumps in swinging, claiming millions, asking the commenter if they are on dope. And just like that, the troll won. Because the troll wanted one thing, a reaction, and she delivered it with a bow on top. Worse, the reaction put the shaky purse math back on the front page, and now the $500,000 disclosure is trending next to her own millions claim. She did not defend the bag. She set the bag on fire and then argued with the smoke. Round 2. A boxing fan, an actual fan, asks a real question. Hey, if you and this other champion are both willing to fight the same opponent, why not fight each other? That is not hate. That is literally the most normal question in boxing. That is how every great rivalry in the history of the sport started. And the response? Name-calling. Straight to insults. Something about weight classes, calling the person stupid, tossing in a jab at another fighter for good measure. A layup of a question. A chance to look like a boss, to say line them up, I will fight anybody. And instead, she reached for the insult like it was a mouthpiece. And this is the pattern her defenders refuse to touch. They will scream you are hating on a black woman all day long, but they will never address the actual substance. Why does every fair question get treated like a felony? Why does the self-proclaimed role model talk to strangers like she is trying to get kicked off the app? Crickets. Every time. Church mouse silence from the fan club, because there is no defending the indefensible, so they just change the subject to loyalty. Round 3. Somebody comments that she is overrated and credit where it is due. They actually softened it, saying it is not her fault, saying women's boxing does not get the platform it deserves, and warning people not to get too excited about a win over an opponent who is nearly 50 and forced to turn pro late. Now, that is a spicy take, sure, but it is a take with seasoning, and a confident champion lets it breathe. Not Claressa Shields. She is back in the replies caping for herself, calling everybody haters. And here's what fascinates me. I have said it myself. She is a great boxer. Great. Generational. Even. But great and greatest are different zip codes. And when you look at the knockout column versus the resume of who she has actually stopped at the elite level, the GWOAT argument has gaps you can drive a ring truck through. That is not hate. That is tape study. And the fact that she treats tape study like a personal attack tells you everything about how fragile the crown really is. And then there was the fan club comment that accidentally revealed the whole game. One of her defenders jumped in saying, when it comes to her, I lose all understanding. Y'all just love hating on this woman. And I read that and thought, there it is. There's the whole playbook. Notice what that comment does not do. It does not address the purse math. It does not address the tattoo timeline. It does not address the flowers video, the funeral story, the name calling, none of it. It just declares hate and walks off. That is not a defense. That is a smokescreen with a profile picture. And the fan club learned it from the champ, because changing the subject is the family business. Meanwhile, and this is the part that should genuinely make her circle nervous, while she is fighting strangers for free, the actual hierarchy of women's sports is moving without her. Aya Wilson is stacking MVPs like they are buy one get one, collecting so many trophies she needs a storage unit, and she has her own signature shoe. Her own shoe, on shelves, with her name on it. Serena Williams is on the television during commercial breaks of things that have nothing to do with tennis. That is what A-list looks like. And when Aya Wilson won Sportswoman of the Year, here came the camp acting like somebody got robbed, like one fight against one opponent somehow outweighs an entire dynasty season. Come on, man. Aya earned that the way you earn things at that level, by being undeniable every single night, not by being loud every single morning. And instead of the moment being about women's sports winning, it became another grievance in the pile. Another comment war. Another L in the court of public opinion. And do not even get me started on the endorsement flex. She told everybody the purse did not include all the endorsements and the other stuff she is going on. Okay, where? Point to them. Is Nike knocking? Is Adidas calling? Is Gatorade in the lobby? Because from the cheap seats, the business portfolio looks like merge tables and hustle, and respect for the hustle, truly. But hustle is not what she is selling. She is selling empire, and the receipts say retail. Now we arrive at the part of the story where it stops being funny, because there is a real incident at the center of all this that involved real hands on a real person. An altercation. A moment where things reportedly got physical with a woman at an event. And look, athletes make mistakes. Heat of the moment. Tempers flare. It happens across every sport. And you know what the playbook is when it happens? Every crisis manager on earth knows it. You come out. You own it. You say I messed up. I let my emotions get the best of me. I apologize. And you let time do its work. That is the whole play. It is a layup. And what did Claressa Shields do instead? She doubled down. No apology. No accountability. And then, and I could not believe this when it happened, she turned the whole incident into content. A diss track. She made a song out of the situation that was actively damaging her career. Imagine your lawyer watching that upload. Imagine your team watching the one thing you are supposed to distance yourself from get pressed, packaged, and promoted. Who is around her? Who is in that camp watching the queen crash the car and handing her another set of keys? Because that is not a support system. That is a front row seat. And that is really the tragedy hiding underneath all this comedy. The talent is real. The story, Flint, the gold medals, the barriers broken, it is all real. And it deserved a better second act than this. Because right now, she has confused being talked about with being celebrated. And those two things have never been further apart. People are not watching because she is popping. People are watching because the internet has figured out that she will always swing back, always over-explain, always hand the crowd another screenshot. Claressa Shields is not the main event. She is the sparring session the internet uses to warm up. And until somebody in that circle loves her enough to take the phone, cancel the comment shifts, and make her smaller so her legacy can get bigger, the greatest of all time is going to keep losing to accounts with 11 followers. And since we are doing inventory, let us talk about the word loser, because she threw it at a commenter and the audacity deserves its own paragraph. This is a woman the world watched lose big moments on big stages. Fights, awards, votes, all of it public, all of it archived. And listen, losing is not shameful. Every great champion in history has a few LS hiding in the trophy room. But when your own highlight reel, Claressa Shields, includes very visible, very televised losses, reaching for loser as your go-to insult is a bold strategy, because the internet keeps receipts in chronological order and will happily pull the tape. It is the same energy as the millions claim, the same energy as the A-list claim. Say it loud, say it first, and hope nobody checks. Except everybody checks now. That is the era she is living in and refusing to adapt to. And notice, through every single one of these exchanges, not once does she say the 4 words that would end half of this overnight. You know what? My bad. Not once. The vocabulary has a million words in it, and my bad is not one of them. In this camp, accountability is the one opponent Claressa Shields will not get in the ring with. So now I am handing it to you, because this one is genuinely split down the middle. Is Claressa Shields being targeted unfairly, held to a standard that male champions never get held to? Because there is a real argument there, and I want to hear it made properly. Or is this exactly what accountability looks like when you crown yourself and dare the world to check the receipts? And the bigger question, should she take the Cyborg money, chase the Aya Wilson lane of letting the work talk, or is the comment section chaos actually the smartest marketing play in boxing right now? Get in the comments and tell me which side you are on, and be specific, because you already know vague defenses get no oxygen here. If this breakdown earned your sub, hit the button, because the next one is already loading. And if you think this saga is wild, wait until you see what is happening on the other side of the boxing world, because the video on your screen right now goes into a rivalry where the receipts are even crazier. I will see you there. I am out.